Hello, my name is Dave Edwards. My wife Bobby and I live in the United States. And when we lived in India, we met Prithvi in 2011 at our church and involved in the youth group. And over the years, we've become good friends. And it's good to see what is happening with Christ's rules and the impact that it's making there and abroad as well. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what Christ said on the cross, I thirst. Until his final breath, Jesus proclaims forgiveness and salvation for all who would hear and respond. Hanging on the cross, Jesus suffered bitter agony and darkness while covered in our guilt, sin, and shame. When the act of purchasing our redemption was complete, nothing more was needed. One of the statements that Jesus makes while on the cross is, I thirst. This statement in some way seems to stand in contrast to his other statements on the cross. His cry, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, for example, is obviously a prayer for forgiveness upon a sinful humanity. Similarly, his statements to Mary and John, behold your son, behold your mother, implies the creation of the Christian community. Yet the declaration of his thirst seems different. The focus of this statement is not on the Father above, nor on the crowd below, but on himself as he hangs on the cross. Perhaps this is why the phrase has intrigued so many. The cross is not a simple event. Christ's death on the cross is God's definitive response to a fallen humanity. Instead of judgment, we find grace. Instead of retribution, God bestows redemption. Instead of punishment, Jesus embraces the suffering of humanity. After Jesus survived the beating of the Roman soldiers, and after he carried his cross up to the top of Golgotha, and after the soldiers tied him to the cross and hung him on the cross, I would imagine he was thirsty, even dehydrated. His blood has dried on his lips. There's no saliva to moisten them. His throat was dry, and his voice was scratchy. Have you ever been to that point in your life where you've been very, very thirsty, where your lips stick together and your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth? It may even be difficult to concentrate on what's happening around you. But Jesus was fully aware of what was happening. So exactly what did Jesus declare when he said, I thirst? Many believe he was just thirsty, but we believe differently. Christians believe that Jesus was fully human. Jesus was flesh and blood like all the others. He ate and he drank. He slept, he laughed, he wept, he suffered, and he died. Jesus did not escape the crucifixion through some divine loophole. After all, how can Jesus offer the solution to the world's brutality and violence if in some way he did not experience the crucifixion? On the cross, Jesus enters the reality of pain, suffering, and death. Jesus takes the suffering of humankind upon himself in order to be the way of redemption. It is because of this fact that we can be confident that nothing in our lives lie outside Christ's redeeming love. If we do not understand that Jesus was fully flesh and human person, then we do not fully understand the gospel. Yet Jesus wasn't just another human being. While fully human, he was also fully divine. During the approximately 6 hours that Jesus Christ hung on the cross, the Lord spoke 7 statements. One of those statements is recorded in John 19:28. Later, knowing that everything had been finished so that the scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said, I am thirsty. The Apostle John links Jesus' statement, I thirst, to the fulfillment of Scripture. There were at least 20 Old Testament prophecies fulfilled during the 24 hours surrounding the Lord's death. By highlighting how Old Testament scriptures were fulfilled throughout Jesus' crucifixion, John showed that everything was happening according to God's plan. When Jesus said, "I thirst," from the cross, he was alluding to the prophecy in Psalm 22:15. My mouth is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You lay me in dust of death. Twice Jesus was offered wine while on the cross. The first came in Matthew 27:34 and in Luke 23:36. They offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. According to old tradition, respected women in Jerusalem provided a narcotic drink to those condemned to death in order to decrease the sensitivity of the excruciating pain. When Jesus arrived at Golgotha, he was offered wine mixed with myrrh, but he refused it, choosing to endure the full consciousness, the suffering appointed for him. So the first wine, mixed with myrrh, was designed to dull Jesus' pain, to keep him from having to endure the cross with full consciousness. This wine he refused. Another time came in Mark 15:35. After some bystanders thought he was calling for Elijah, someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine and put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink, mocking Jesus, saying, "Wait, let's see whether Elijah will come down to him and get him." They didn't let him drink that either. Several hours later, in John 19:29, Jesus said, "I am thirsty," asking for a drink. The soldiers offered him the wine vinegar. A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked it on a sponge, put the sponge on a stalk of hyssop plant, and lifted it up to Jesus' lips. Wine vinegar was the cheapest and easiest wine for soldiers to acquire.